everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Kitten Lady and Friends. It's my interview series where I'm talking to experts in feline welfare, and we are all staying curious about how we can make the world a better place for cats. I am, of course, joined by Coco, my trusty sidekick, and I have a kitten cam with some new babies. Really exciting. These babies are obviously having a meal off of their mama there, which is very appropriate for the conversation I'm going to be having today. Not only am I partnering with Royal Canin for this series as part of their catology series, but I also am joined today by a guest who knows all about nutrition. Her name is Brian Morrow. She is a licensed veterinary technician. She's also a veterinary technician specialist in nutrition, and she's the nutrition communications lead for Royal Canin, which is my favorite cat food company, and it happens to be Coco's favorite cat food company too. So I'm super excited to have her here. Welcome, Bree.
Hi, thank you
Hey,
so
oh,
much
I
for
just saw a
having me.
whisker.
Yeah,
Who do
sorry
you have with
have
you?
whiskers. This is
I
Dundee.
mean, never apologize. Hi, Dundee.
He is my corn kitten foster to forever. So I was only supposed to foster him, but his medical journey just we bonded and he's not going anywhere.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really exciting. Well, I'm super happy to have you here to talk all about cat nutrition. You have been so helpful for me navigating all sorts of different nutritional needs and helping me understand everything. And of course, I call you when I have a question about a foster kitten. And right now I have a really exciting different type of case. I don't usually take on a lot of moms and babies, but as you can see, I've got this new mama. Her name's Tum Tum. Mama Tum Tum and her babies. So I thought it would be cool to start with like exactly what I have going on right now, which is a nursing mom and babies. Can you talk a little bit about, starting from the beginning with these moms and babies, what's the nutritional content of mama's milk, and why is it so good for these little newborn kittens?
Yeah, it's great. And I'm so glad to see her take those babies back. And mama's milk honestly is magical, whether it doesn't matter what your species is, especially those important first like 12 to 24 hours with the colostrum. And just like in humans' milk, it's ever evolving depending on the phases of lactation and where those kittens are. And so not only does mama's milk provide all the essential nutrients that they need to grow and develop, it also gives them GI support, digestive enzyme support, and their initial kind of immune system. So it's irreplaceable. And I'm just it just warms my heart just to see her, being able to make those connections. There are, recipes out there for milk replacers that you can make at home. But in all honesty, the protein ends up being lower, the calories, it's just never enough. And we want to set our kittens up, like what we feed our kittens sets them up to be adult cats and live those healthier lives. So, there's nothing that compares quite to, the milk from a mama cat or a queen. You can use kitten formula. That's ideal if you don't have a mama cat, but there's nothing like getting it straight from the source.
Sure, I totally agree with that. And I was really, really happy that, in this situation, these kittens came to me as orphans. And then, like 24 hours later, the mom came into the picture. She came into a spay-neuter clinic from the same neighborhood. And so we were able to reunite her with her babies. And, I spend so much of my time working with kittens who are formula-fed bottle babies. And of course, you can simulate mother's milk to a certain extent, but you're never going to have the same experience as the real thing. I mean, is there anything that you can share about kind of what goes into kitten formulas and maybe some of the dangers of trying to do any kind of homemade diet at home versus going with something that's a prepared formula?
Yeah, I think from my expertise side, I'm not. All right, let's not eat the paper. Intermission. Uh, what's where my expertise is not really like the science behind formulating the formula and how those experts kind of do that magic in being able to provide kittens the most appropriate nutrition as we can. But what I can speak to is those, the homemade recipes are, going to be lacking in the calories and specifically the fat as well, which kittens need for that energy as, they grow so fast. I mean, this thing was a completely different beast 3 days ago. Whereas I also have had, I don't know if you've encountered this also, but people trying to use cow's milk or goat's milk, like other
Ugh.
species. And and to be completely honest, it's completely inappropriate. They're ruminants, first of all, so that they're omnivores, and it is, it's just severely lacking, and we're just risking GI disease. We're risking digestion issues, compromising their growth and development, and then some of that stuff is irreversible as far as damage goes. So it's just mission critical to provide those, the appropriate amount of protein, the appropriate amount of fat and calories. And I get it, emergencies happen and maybe you don't have it, kitten milk replacer at hand, or the mom is not available. Well, we don't want to do the other species milk. If you have to, you could potentially do a homemade recipe, and then immediately as soon as that store opens up, get yourself an appropriate, kitten milk replacer formula. Just because there's so much behind it. It's not just as easy as mixing a few ingredients at home and calling it good. There's variation, and everybody measures ingredients different. So there's too much room for error for these tiny little lives to put at risk.
I really appreciate what you said because, I see a lot of horrifying things out there. People trying to feed their kittens something that they just have laying around in the
Yeah.
fridge. And whether you're talking about a bottle baby or a weaning kitten or an adult cat, I mean, the things that you have in your fridge for human consumption are not necessarily going to meet the nutritional needs of a cat. So I want to kind of move ahead in kitten development now. So after a baby has, been with mom or has been a bottle baby, they start weaning. And I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about the nutritional needs of kittens as opposed to adult cats, because you don't want to take, your 5, 6, 7, 8 week old kittens and feed them, adult cat food. So what
Right.
is it in kitten food that makes it kitten food?
Yeah, right. It's so what kitten food is, and I get where this is coming from. Is yes, it would be easier if we could feed them one thing for their whole life. Nobody likes change, right? But if you think about it, we change our nutritional needs. None of us are still nursing or eating purees or any of that, and so we have to set them up for their future. And feeding a diet that's specifically formulated for a kitten is truly going to set them up for success. Just knowing that, first off, kittens grow for 12 months, unless Maine Coons are big old gentle giants. They grow a little bit longer for 15 months, and we need to support that nutrition. Again, as you see, and flipping through any of your photos, like kittens change overnight. Like they look like somebody replaced your cat. And so when it comes to their nutrition, they need more protein, more fat, different levels of vitamins and minerals than a healthy adult cat. And we have to be able to supply that, because if we have excesses or deficiencies in vitamins or nutrients, again, that can be irreversible at times. And what we want to make certain that growth is there is you can easily determine that on a pet food label if you flip it over, and there'll be an AFCO feeding guidelines saying it's either formulated for or done feeding tests that substantiate growth. Not all life stages. I do personally prefer diets that are specifically for kittens, because again, if we're mixing in multiple life stages, I just get concerned about where are we crossing a line on the nutritional levels that they're getting, especially when it comes to those amino acids that they need and the brain development in the body, just overall body development, is trying to set them up for the most success. I really want to make certain that people use a kitten food and not, it's, all my cats eat this, it's fine. I get it. It's so much
Sure.
easier. But it's worth
Right.
going for the growth and then starting to establish good eating behaviors too, with that food, as far as getting them used to, as they're babies, yes, we, ad lib feed them, but then start doing meals and getting them used to those healthy behaviors, again, to prevent that feline kitten obesity is a big thing and a growing problem these days, as I see more and more consults of, hey, I need a weight loss on this 9-month-old kitten already. And
Wow.
so again, making certain that we're feeding the kitten, not the bowl, and using that food for growth.
Something that you taught me that I feel so silly that I didn't know before, is that there are even different stages of the nutritional needs of kittens. Like, once they're weaned, it's not like they just eat kitten food and then they eat adult food. There's actually like young kitten food, and then there's kitten food for kittens who are like over 4 months. So can you talk about like what changes between, because there's that period of rapid growth, right? Like for the
Mm-hmm.
0 to 4 month period is just like boom, 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 boom. And then you get to the
Yeah.
4 month old cat and you've got kind of this lanky, a little bit more slow development cat who is still a kitten. So what's the difference, and what should people be looking for in terms of when they transition from that early kitten food diet to the older kitten food diet?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Not a lot of companies do provide multiple phased kitten development growth diets, and that's I really appreciate Royal Canin, not just as an associate, but just because they're thinking about their needs and stages. So the referencing that mother and baby cat formula is being able to, when they don't have teeth or they're starting to develop teeth, the rehydratable kibble, it's smaller, the GI support, transitioning though to the kitten formula, which is the larger size kibble. But as we discussed before, like we have that spayed neutered kitten diet. We're like, why do we have that? And even as a veterinary technician before I started, I'm like, I don't understand why there's so many options. But when they're spayed and neutered, to decrease all those unwanted kittens, and no more homelessness for cats, which is ideal, is their hunger goes up, their metabolism goes down, so there's that imbalance, right? And they can sing you the song of their people all night long, like, my bowl is empty, you're starving me. This little guy bites my ankles, I have the marks to prove it. And so being able to give them some different fibers to make them feel fuller, longer, to kind of ease that transition for them as they adjust, as they're growing, is going to be great to, again, prevent that feline obesity problem that we are seeing globally. But also for their phases of development, right? They have this big structure growth phase, and then they get, like you said, they turn into those lanky teenagers as they start to layer on the muscle. And so then not only do they need the energy for maintenance to keep themselves going, but they also have to start layering on that tissue growth and development. And so we have to fuel that, and that takes quite a bit of energy for them. So those diets are I'm saying a lot, but they are layered onto that factor and nutritionally balanced for that. Like, it compensates, like, okay, he's going to use a lot of this to go and play and chase things and all this, but oh yeah, by the way, he's also going to have to develop some better hind end muscles, or start to fill in that lankiness, so he doesn't just look like the giraffe on skates, as sometimes this one over here underneath my desk is looking like.
I know exactly what you mean. Oh, that's so interesting. Well, another thing that I think a lot of kitten people deal with that has to do with nutrition is the D word, diarrhea.
Yeah.
And I know
Yes.
that you don't just have like professional experience with this, you also have personal experience dealing with kittens and diarrhea. So I have all of these cute pictures you sent of Dundee. I know you have Dundee next to you, but let's look at some of
Yeah.
Dundee's pictures, and you can tell me a little bit about like your journey, your diarrhea journey with Dundee, and what happened and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so Dundee was found at a barn pole. So up here in upstate New York, we have often a lot of barns, and everybody tends to, oh, it's a barn. I'm just going to drop this cat off here. And farmers do their best, but litters happen. And so we were there with the rescue that I helped foster and consult with, and found this little beautiful orange kitten in the gutter of the cow germ barn. Brought him home. He had a horrific URI, of course, so an upper respiratory infection. His eyes weren't quite sure the condition of them. So, of course, we started him on antibiotics. We're trying to get him stabilized. We had quite a few close calls in the first 48 hours with him. And there he is. And he actually had a solid poop after 48 hours. I'm like, this is magical. This never happens, right? Well, I cursed myself by saying that, and literally cursed myself. The last day of his antibiotics, we had just gastrointestinal nightmare of a situation. It was on my walls. It was on the layers of, his enclosure, where you want a squeegee. He went into hypoglycemic shock from it. So we immediately went, yeah, there it is in its glory, right?
Oh my God.
So we immediately went to the ER with him and started doing, of course, like with diarrhea, I always say fecal, 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 fecal. There's different life cycles and parasites and everything like that, especially with kittens. And so of course, we dewormed him and everything, but his stool wasn't getting better. So I gave it about 36 hours and said, okay, you know what? We've done the medical side. Now let's get some nutrition involved, because you worry about dehydration with these guys and that's a lot of energy to brew that mess, right? So I did start him on a kitten gastrointestinal diet. And just look at the magic within, 12 hours to 24 hours to 36 hours. It was an easy scoop finally. And honestly, I couldn't believe it, because this is a newer diet for us that's specifically for kittens. This company never ceases to amaze me or shock me, but just to see how fast there was, consistency to his stool, he bounced back. There he is when he finally had a good fecal score.
Oh my
Everybody
gosh.
has to
I
go
mean, you did
through.
a great job with him. I'm so proud of Dundee for how far he's come, and I can't tell you how much I relate to these like GI journeys that you go on when you're either fostering or adopting a kitten. For me, my most recent case, you know very well because you're the person who helped me through it, which was James. James was my foster kitten who had the opposite problem. He had
Yeah.
severe constipation, and like when you look at the X-rays of James, it's like it's horrifying. I mean, he's like completely backed up, totally obstipated, and he had to go to the hospital. He had to go through all of, just was horrible. He had to go through deobstipation, multiple enemas, and nothing was moving. And I'm more used to what you were going through with diarrhea. With this, I was like, how do I get, because we wanted everything to be softer. So what's amazing to me is this food that you gave Dundee, that's also what you told me to give to James, and it completely saved him. Like the GI kitten diet, first of all, he loved it. Like he would go absolutely bananas for it. And once he didn't need it anymore, he was like kind of sad because he was like, wait, I love the GI diet. But I was like, James, you're fine now. You don't need it anymore. And he's like, but please. But look how beautiful he is now. I mean, he doesn't have that full hard belly anymore. He was able to have like just a normal consistency to his stool. So can you talk about like how does the GI kitten diet, which I didn't even know existed until his case, how does that also help? Because it helps obviously with like keeping their stool more firm, like you showed, but how does it also help with helping them be regular if they are constipated?
Yeah. So with kittens, they don't, when kittens are developing, they explore everything with their mouths, right? However, their GI tract, the immune system in their GI tract isn't fully established. And so that takes a little bit more time. It's being able to provide nutrients in a diet, so ingredients or nutrients in a diet that can help with that GI immune system helps kind of just, I like to say, like the motions in the ocean. So getting them to go to the bathroom more regularly, right? Being able to promote like a good healthy fecal score, but just creating that good yin and yang in their GI tract, and not to oversimplify it, but it does happen. We all have seen commercials like Activia, right? And you go more regularly. Uh, but that is probiotics. The prebiotics are naturally occurring fibers like FOS, and so that's fructooligosaccharides, and you could see it written out in all of its letter glory on the back of an ingredient bag. But you could also see chicory or inulin in a pet food. And what this does is it
Mm-hmm.
creates an environment where good bacteria want to thrive. So it acidifies the GI tract, making an environment where good bacteria want to hang out, kind of feeding them, or what I like to teach my students, like feed the friendlies, right? So FOS feeds the friendly bacteria, so that the bad bacteria, they just can't they can't cause havoc or overpopulate there. And that I find it's so simple, but it's not used by every single company out there. I mean, there's so many companies out there, but that's like part of the magic of the gastrointestinal diets is creating, soothing the gut, not only soothing it, but restoring that balance and fueling that immune system, because a lot of your immune system starts in your gut. And so creating that. And so with James, it was magical to help with the digestibility. His body didn't have to work so hard. He already has, his abilities, right, to use his front legs more than his his nub or his lack of the hind
His
end.
nubs.
So how do we help his GI tract become more mobile as he is moving, right? Because the same thing in people who are not as ambulatory as you have, you can have decreased motility in your gut. So how do we teach his gut to move a little bit better as he's learning, right? Because he has to learn too. How do I move? And man, I was watching some of his videos, and you guys did such an awesome job with the stairs and his routines and his exercise. Like that all plays a huge role in everything.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. It was like that diet was what got him through the period where he didn't have a lot of mobility. And so it was like
Yep.
he needed other things to be working for him. His diet, he also needed some like medical support to just like keep everything moving, but also make it like nice and firm because, of course, you didn't want him like it to be too loose because he's like dragging himself around. It
Yeah.
was just incredible, and I have to say, like that obviously, it's a veterinary diet. It's not just a diet that anybody can just go grab for their cat, but these
Right.
veterinary diets, they're so good to have for these difficult cases. And I'm wondering if you can kind of talk a little bit about what is the value of having different veterinary diets. And I think specifically urinary diets are something a lot of people have questions about. What is like a diet that you would recommend for those types of cases, and what's the value of having kind of this line of different veterinary diets?
Yeah. It is hard for some for to understand. It took me a while too, as I was new to veterinary medicine and being a technician, as far as what was the difference between a diet you could just get over the counter and a diet that was at the veterinary office or noted as like a therapeutic diet that you can only get from your veterinarian. And when it comes to like lower urinary tract disease, like you mentioned, for cats are very predisposed to or are frequent flyers in having lower urinary tract disease. So when it comes to those like with lower urinary tract disease, nutrition can actually tackle, peeing outside of the litter box. There is nutrition out there, and there's a lot of science behind it, and that's the power of a therapeutic diet, is being able to do the research. We're able to scientifically formulate a diet outside on top of the regular guidelines for cat nutrition, is also add in extra science to kind of counterbalance, support their urinary tract health. And it's just all in all, like there's more science behind it, a lot of research. There's added nutritional value and nutrients that are utilized, and just the opportunities that are out there, like you had mentioned, like with James's GI kitten diet. But if James was an adult and constipated, I would recommend a completely different diet that would kind of help lubricate his intestinal tract so that the stool didn't hang out. So I would use a diet called feline fiber response that would help his GI motility. So we would go differently. I think it's interesting. Nutrition's not exactly black and white. It's like rainbows and glitter and confetti guns, because I have a different answer for every patient.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about with the urinary infections, which are so unfortunately common in cats?
Yeah.
There's dietary things you can do, and then there's also like a litter additive thing that I would love to hear about that you were telling me about. What is that?
Yeah, right on. So we already know bringing cats to the vet can be a challenge. And what we can do is Royal Canin will be launching this fall. It's called hematuria detection technology by Blue Care. And you don't have to change your cat's litter, which is the coolest thing, because I have had cats that are very specific about what litter they're going to use, and they will boycott the box until I bring back the old stuff. But it is actually a little packet. It will come in this, and it's a packet that you'll sprinkle right on top of your box. And what it will do is, if your cat has any type of blood in their urine, it'll turn blue, indicating that you need to call your veterinarian and bring them in or tell them what you're detecting. It's a great way for cat owners, to have some control in this. Sometimes it seems uncontrollable nature of, oh my goodness, when are they going to have a flare of inflammation, or what's going on with them? So it's nice to be able to do something as a pet owner in monitoring their cats at home. And again, it's through your veterinarian. So often it's going to be leveraged if they already have had a lower urinary tract issue, like blood in the urine, or, any type of lower urinary tract disease. But it's a great opportunity to not have you waiting and holding your breath for an issue at hand. Because as soon as you see that blue, okay, something's off kilter here, and I need to bring him into the vet for, whether it's another urinalysis. But again, it's going to take away that, all right, let's bring him to the vet, have a urinalysis pulled. I don't know if there's an issue. If it's blue, you have an issue, and we have to take action.
Well, that's really, really interesting. I can't wait to try that. So I want to talk about something that is a big question for me, which is food preference for cats. Because I have 3 cats of my own, and then obviously I have like a whole bunch of foster kittens, and everybody has different food preferences. Some of my cat, like I have a cat who only wants to eat wet. I have a cat who prefers dry. I have cats who prefer different flavors of things. So there's, clearly there's diets that are designed for the specific needs of the cats, but then there's also what the cat wants. So how do cat taste buds work? Like, how do they develop their food preferences? What can they taste? Why do they have these different ideas of what they like?
Yeah, it can be a circus trying to find exactly what your cat's preference is. and it's a little bit more than taste, because when it comes to taste buds, they have a completely different amount than dogs and humans. In fact, they only have a few hundred, so they have like a little bit over 400 taste buds, whereas humans have over 9,000. And what's interesting to me is that cats have non-functional sugar taste receptors. Now, you couldn't fool me because Dundee definitely knows when I have ice cream out of the refrigerator, out of the freezer. Like he will just come careening in to check it out. But it's more about, it's less about like what it tastes like and more kind of transitioning into what's the aroma? How does it texture, the texture that feels in your mouth? And I always like to attribute it as like, what's your favorite M&M? And in like a group of people, I always ask them like, "What's your favorite M&M?" Some like the original. I prefer the crispy one, so I'm apparently a dry food kibble cat. Um, versus others like, maybe they don't like it like M&Ms at all, and they would rather a chocolate bar. So maybe they are more of a canned food type of a cat. So it's really interesting when it goes towards taste is that we're also taking into consideration the aroma, the size and shape of the kibble. Again, some cats like wet food, but they absolutely won't eat the morsels and gravy because they like more of that softer texture. And that's, again, when it goes back to taste, how does it feel in their mouth? So it is a fine science. That's why there's luckily a lot of palatins, and we do so much research on proteins to attract them to eat and encourage them to eat. But yeah, it's not like a one size fits all. And that's why, thankfully there are so many diets out there on the market to, again, hopefully hit every single cat's preference.
So sorry, my cat's knocking stuff over. She's like, I just wanted to say that my food preference, actually, Coco's food preference is to try new stuff. I'm sorry, she just barged in to interrupt, but her food preference is like she wants to be trying new things all the time, and she'll like do something for a while and then be like, okay, give me something else. And that was a question I had too, is like, I always hear you want to be careful about transitioning diets, but why is that? Because, a human, we eat, I have tacos one night and the next night I have pizza and the night after that I have Chinese or whatever it is. How careful do we need to be about giving cats, oh my gosh, Coco, come here, girl. She's trying to close up all the programs. Come here. Coco.
She's reorganizing.
She is. So what would you say to Coco, my darling Coco, who wishes that she could, have a different thing every night of the week? What would you say about that or transitioning diets?
Well, Coco has a tummy like a tank if she's not experiencing any gastrointestinal distress. And I think that's really where we shy away from recommending changing diets often, is some cats need a very slow transition. It could take a week. It could take 10 days. My cat, Abe, it took him a month to transition to something else. Otherwise, we were dealing with vomiting, diarrhea, and that could cause food aversion later on, is when you try to go and offer that, they're like, nope, I'm not doing it. I do like owners to encourage their kittens to try different textures of foods. So encouraging them to try canned foods and then try a dry, just so if later in their life their nutritional needs change and say they need a therapeutic diet that is canned or is only dry, that is not stranger danger, because they are creatures of habit sometimes. And even like I changed Dundee's bowl, and it went from, I have like a little Disney cat plate and I used a little red saucer, and he just sat there. And I'm like, it's not going to explode. It's safe. I'm like, it's safe. It's the same food, but it was a different bowl. And it was just so funny to see it in action. It's always a great reminder and humbling to see those things in action. I'm like, okay, it's not exploding. It's a safe plate. I go get his normal plate, put the food on it, and he was fine. So now I have to change the plates with him more often. But again, if we have to change their nutrition along their life, it's great to have it not be such a stranger danger moment for them, so they understand there is wet food and they understand there's dry food, and this is what that felt in my mouth, and it was okay and it was safe and I didn't die. And so I do encourage them, kitten owners, to at least offer it to them at least a couple times so they recognize it and it's not so scary if their needs change or whatnot in the future. For adults, I always say just make sure to go slow. when you're transitioning, because the last thing we want to cause is gastrointestinal upset. And then with cats, like, they get stressed out about that they're pooping. And so it's stress poop on top of regular gastrointestinal diarrhea. So sometimes I'm like, is it worth the risk? Going slow. Some cats refuse to transition. So you open up one thing and they dive right in and like, forget about the old food. And they're not going to transition. So they're going to naturally cause their tummies to get upset. Or they can be tanks and they're totally fine. I assess the risk with that. And I'm a little gun shy. And I'm like, all right, we're just going to keep, life is good. We're going to keep everything the way it is, unless they start becoming finicky, and then I'll change it up or change the bowl, apparently, with Dundee.
I think Coco she's my oldest cat. She was my first cat ever. And I remember very, very clearly, like, the feeling of, getting a cat and not knowing, like, what on earth I was doing with feeding this cat. She probably is a tank because I tried like 100 different foods with her when she was a baby because I didn't know what to do. And that's a question that I wanted to ask you about, is like, if you're a new cat person, you've got a cat, you don't really know what they need cat food, but you don't really know what kind of cat food. When you go to the store and there's like this wall of bags and cans and pouches and everything, like, I think I told you this, I literally used to just go and just be like, well, like, I like the branding of that one, and maybe that, I don't, like, I had no idea. This was like 11 years ago. I was like, that one has a bobcat on it. That seems cool. I'll get the one with the bobcat.
Great.
I just had no idea what I was doing. Of course, now I know a little bit more, but can you talk about, like, for new cat people, what should they be thinking about when they're looking at the wall of cat food? What should they be thinking about? Is it about price? Is it about flavor? Is it about texture? Is it about reading the label? What's your advice?
All of the above. No.
Okay. Not the picture on the bag, though, right?
Yes. So yeah, I mean, it is completely overwhelming keeping up with how many diets are there. I mean, there are even multiple aisles of treats now for cats, let alone aisles for diets. So it's completely overwhelming. The first thing I always ask pet owners, and it relies on the World Small Animal Veterinary Association, so we name it WSAVA, and they have great tips for free on their website. But what they kind of go after is, first off, is asking them, is it safe? So do you know their safety standards? And every company should tell you. And if they don't tell you, hang up and move on. When you're doing your research, is it safe? The next one is it nutritious? So what that means is it complete and balanced for that cat's life stage? So is it for kittens? Is it for an adult? And then, is it for that pet? So is it right for your cat? So if you have an indoor cat, or your cat is gaining a little bit more weight or is prone to hairballs, well, then that's when we can raise the bar and use more precise nutrition. There are thousands of diets out there, and you can really give them a targeted diet for their cat just by asking yourselves those questions, like, is it safe? Is it, nutritious for them? And is it right for my cat? Because again, it is overwhelming. The internet all tells different stories. There are great websites out there that actually have done some of the work for you as far as understanding what a company's safety standards are. Do they employ boarded nutritionists and PhDs in nutrition full-time, not just on a consulting basis? Is there somebody there always advocating for science and what's best for the cat? And then those safety standards. So if you're comfortable with those, that's where I start reducing my aisles. And it's not like, oh, this aisle is the safe aisle, this aisle's not. They're all intermixed with each other, but just being a little obsessive about nutrition, and nobody wants their pet food to be recalled. Nobody makes pet food to be recalled, but I want to make certain that I know and they're transparent about their safety standards and what they do to make certain that my cat's getting the best nutrition.
So you taught me something a while ago that blew my mind. And I guarantee most of the people watching this do not know how to read a cat food label. I didn't even know what went into cat food labels, and suddenly you like decoded the entire cat food aisle for me, and now I feel like this secret agent who totally understands everything. Can you talk? And I brought a can of this is the food I feed my kittens, the mother and baby
Mhm.
cat, and I didn't even know it has this little look at this. This
Yes.
is all information on the back, and I was like, this is like a secret scroll that I never even knew this was here, and I can learn so much, and there's like all this information. So your labels are really the Royal Canin labels are awesome. There's so much information here. But can you talk more broadly and like explain what you explained to me before about reading even just the name of cat food? Like what can you learn just by looking at the bag?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is a pet food label is a legal document. So there are actually rules and guidelines behind it and requirements that actually have to be on the label. What's funny though is the graphics do not need to be required. So there's so many pretty pictures, like you mentioned, bobcats and rainbows. I'm a big fan, rainbows and glitter. I'm like, here we go. I'll use this one.
Ooh, I like that.
I'm totally sold when it comes to pretty, right? But when it comes to pet food labels, especially when it comes to like the diet name. So if a company is naming a diet after like an ingredient, so if it is chicken and rice, that name is giving you an indicator of what percentage of that diet is actually those two ingredients. So it's calling attention to them. And there are rules around what you can name it. The most common rule, which you and I laughed about, is like when you see dinner, entree, stew, or recipe or formula after it. So if it just says chicken and rice dinner, that means that chicken and rice equal 25% up to 94.9% of that diet's, components. Versus if it just said chicken and rice on it, well, that's 95%. However, if I have Bree's diet and it's with chicken and rice, it now drops down to each one of those equal 3%. So 3% chicken, 3% rice. So that's it's calling attention to a certain ingredient in a pet food. And they're following the rules, which indicate the level of amount. But oftentimes we assume as humans. So if I see chicken feast or salmon feast, I'm thinking this is all salmon, right? But that feast is indicating 25%, up to that next rule, which is 95%. So turn the can around and look at that ingredient deck, because you may be thinking you're only giving your cat one type of protein, but there could be others in there. It's just not what they're naming the diet after. So it could be salmon, but there may be chicken meal in that, or beef or turkey, or so on and so forth. And especially with cats with adverse reactions to food, we want to be careful when it comes to the diet name and what's in there to not elicit that response.
Right. Okay. My next topic, controversial nutrition topic, is grains and fruits and vegetables in cat food. There are people who say cats should only eat a diet of meat. And then there are people who say cats need some amount of grains, fruits, vegetables in their food. So, what would you say about that?
Yeah, that's a lot of hot topics all in one. It kind of needs like horror music behind it. so So cats and grains, the biggest nutritional truth, just to squish it right out there, is that grain-free diets often contain alternative sorts of carbohydrates. So I feel that oftentimes pet owners think a grain-free diet will therefore be low carb, right? So no carbs for cats. But it's not necessarily true, because the grain-free diets, so no corn in that diet, because corn has a bad reputation, will have potatoes or beans or other legumes as a source of carbohydrate to make that kibble. And there's a lot of studies out there that measure, is there any difference on a macronutrient profile? So does it matter protein, carbohydrate, or fat level? And what they're finding is oftentimes they have the same levels of protein, fat, and carbohydrates with or without grain. I think a lot of the grains come from maybe they have an allergy, Again, cats are more prone to having allergies to animal sources. So, your beef, your fish, your chicken, not necessarily your soy or your rice. Um, Fruits and veggies, that's always a great hot topic because they say, oh, you have to have fruits and veggies in the diet because you have to have natural sources of vitamins and minerals. And they are feel good ingredients. And yes, they are carnivores, but they do need vitamins and minerals. So, how are we going to provide them? And so, you can provide them through chelated vitamins and minerals. So, they are synthetic, but it's just like if you take a vitamin, I take a vitamin. When you look at the back of your vitamin thing, it doesn't say, oh, this vitamin's from cranberries or kelp or whatnot. It'll say exactly, the mind source, or it's been chelated so that cat can absorb it. And that's okay because we want them to get all the nutrients. They don't particularly need apples. They don't need carrots. But what they do need are the nutrients from there. So whether it's coming from natural sources or, your chelated form, I'm down as long as it's complete and balanced.
Okay, so much to unpack here.
I know.
Really I appreciate a lot of what you just said, and I'm going to go to the maybe weirdest question I'm going to ask you. So you mentioned that cats don't need apples and vegetables necessarily, but they do need the nutrition that the vitamins that come from those things. When I think about it, I think a cat in the wild, a wild cat would be eating whole herbivore animals. So the herbivores that they would be consuming, they themselves are consuming the apple or the vegetable or whatever it is, because cats are carnivores. Now, I am vegan. I've been vegan for more than half my life. And every single time that someone finds out I'm vegan, they go, well, are your cats vegan? And I get asked, can your cats be vegan? Or you're not one of those people who feeds vegan cat food. And I could like faint from how horrifying the thought of vegan cat. I mean, there is no vegan cat food. That's an oxymoron. But I want to hear from a specialist. I want to hear from a nutritionist. Why can cats be vegan? Why can't they be vegan? Let's put this whole thing to rest.
Okay. And I'll do it nicely. No. So, the reasons why somebody makes the decision, a human makes the decision to become vegetarian or vegan, it ranges, right? For their personal choice. And it's a very diverse decision. However, the reason a cat becomes vegetarian or vegan is because we're putting on our beliefs onto them, right? And it's a disaster. It's a recipe for disaster because they need meat. They need the amino acids that are being provided, that protein source. And, it's just such a risk. I understand the passions and behind being vegan or vegetarian, and I completely respect it, but we also have to respect that our cats are not humans, and we have to feed these cats like cats, and their nutritional requirements are completely different than ours. So I always just guide them and say, I respect your choice, but you have to respect your cat's choice of being a carnivore, and that's who they need to be, and we need to support that.
I think you really said it. And I fully feel like for me, veganism is a choice I make because I love and respect animals. And part of loving and respecting animals is knowing and recognizing that my cats only have the food that I provide to them. My cats are indoor cats. They're not going to be out there hunting any bunny rabbits or something like that. Right. So, I have to give them a diet that is complete for them. And I tell people, if you don't want to feed meat to an animal, like that's okay. Just adopt an animal who doesn't need to be fed meat. There are plenty of guinea pigs who need homes. There are plenty of rabbits who need homes. There are plenty of wonderful animals who are herbivores who need homes. But if you are going to have a cat, you're going to be feeding them a meat-based diet. So I appreciate your backup on this one. I really do.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all these kind of like specialty diets that are like fads that come and go too. And I wonder if you can speak to that. Like, is that something you see people doing a lot, taking their own diets, whether they're like paleo or something, like trying to force that on their cats? And what would you say to people who are thinking about taking their own diets and sort of pushing that onto their cat?
Yeah, I really try to lean on just the way I answered the vegetarian. I do get keto is growing in trends, or fads, and oftentimes what we feed our cats spills over from human trends, right? The trend of keto, the trend of paleo. That was always great when people are trying to feed their cats like cavemen. Cats were never little cavemen. And so I try to make a joke about it because when it comes to nutrition, it's a passion. Nobody feeds their cat one way or another to cause harm. And in rescue, as you know, there are people who there are horrible situations where cats are emaciated and neglect cases. So I respect anybody who's making a choice to feed their cat and just try to gently guide them again on, these are your preferences and the trends that are going on in human nutrition. However, a cat is a cat, and they have different needs than you, than your son, than your dog, than anybody, anything else. And so we have to feed a cat for who they are, because if we don't feed them now appropriately, that spills over later on in their life too. So if we want to fuel and have our cats, I want Dundee to live forever, and I'm going to do everything I can in my power to keep him going till the end of time. And so started off right with nutrition, because nutrition fuels every part of your body. And so giving them the right nutrition to fuel that helps later on in their life. And so I just try to gently coax them that way. Again, always respecting the fact that they are making choices that they feel are the best for their pet, because that's what they've researched or that makes them feel good. But again, leaning on the fact that they're cats, they're not humans, is normally where I try to lean on.
So I am with you about wanting your cats to live forever. I am always like, oh, Coco's gonna live to be like 100 years old, which of course I would love. I'm sitting here. I know you can't see her, but I'm looking at her right now. She seriously sits by my side like the entire time I'm doing these interviews. She's so sweet. I would love to use just the last couple minutes to talk to you about the diets that I have my cats on and get just like download your brain about why these diets are doing such good work for my cats. Because
Yeah.
I'll start with Eloise. Eloise, my white, one-eyed, very shy cat. Um, she has been on a lot of different diets, but for gosh, like many months now, 4 or 5 months now, she's been on the Royal Canin Calm diet. And I've never seen this cat transform in such a short period of time like I have since she's been on this diet. Eloise is, she is much more accepting of other cats and kittens, of different sounds, of going into a room that has something unfamiliar in it. A lot of things that were scary to her, now she is genuinely more calm about. And I'm like, what is this diet is like awesome. So can you talk to me about like what is in the calm diet that is like changing my cat's life, because it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you for that feedback. I always joke that calm is like our easiest diet name. As far as
Yeah,
when you
it,
when
it works.
it's the easiest name out there. And when it was coming, I was with the company when Calm was coming out. I'm like, really? Like, how is this working? Because it gets the wheels like, is it going to sedate my cat? Like, what medication is in here? But it's not. It's
Yeah, no.
leveraging nutrients. So we're leveraging hydrolyzed milk protein and tryptophan, right? So we've all, like anybody who has, overindulged in a Thanksgiving feast or supplements with L-tryptophan for sleep supplements as well. Those actually help with the serotonin levels, again, to make you feel more calm and more appeased. And I have to say it's magical, and I think one of our best kept secrets in our arsenal of diets, especially for cats, because there's oftentimes there could be you could introduce a cat and there's a bully cat in your household, or change is hard for them, and a stressed cat is not, their welfare. I'm always concerned about cat feline welfare and wanting them to be able to be cats and go through their environment without, jumping off of all fours and puffing out and hissing and running away. So with just using nutrients, we're able to help make a cat feel more comfortable. We're able to help with some behavioral issues. Of course, you need to do your desensitization and, you know, um, get them keep exposing them and watch how it goes. But it's pretty magical to see the transformation, and it does help also with those secondary stress conditions that can happen with cats. So stressed cats can overgroom, so we do have some hairball support in that diet as well. And it does promote healthy bladder health additionally, because we know with stress comes, just like humans, sometimes stressed humans can get lower urinary tract infections or cystitis, and we don't need that to be happening additionally. But it is a really cool diet, and I'm so glad that Eloise really was just watching the kitten train.
I know. I was like, we gotta look at the kittens for a second. Oh, I think she's going to get one. There's one missing. She probably is walking off to go. Whoa, look!
Oh, oh my
She's bringing him
goodness.
back. This is what she does.
That
If one
was
of them wanders off, she goes and
magical.
gets them. I know. It's so cool.
What
Mom
a
cats
good
are
this
so
what
awesome.
a just such an awesome stories, being separated, being found, reunited, and the fact that she just took them on and she's got all the right mama behaviors.
I
Um,
know. It looks a little
it's
scary
just
when they're like picking them up, but
yeah.
she's very gentle with them. She's like, "Hey, get back here. I need to lick your head."
Yep.
Well, I have just one more question about Coco,
Here.
who maybe I can get her to scoot in here. Come here, Coco. Coco loves. She's like the star of the show. Coco is this is my best friend in the world. I love this cat more than I love anything in the world. And it makes me so sad that she's on a senior diet now, because I want to pretend that she's not a senior, but she's 11. So now she is
Mhm.
on the senior consult diet. And since starting that diet, she has become so shiny. She's like, she glows. I'm like, wow, I didn't even notice that her coat condition was not as optimal as it could be until I started her on that diet. So, what is in senior food, and why is my cat so shiny now?
It's an amazing question. It's it's an easy one. Sure, all right. Um, when it comes to like senior nutrition, the requirements don't necessarily change until there's like a health concern. But there are companies that pay attention to seniors, right? Their bodies are aging. They don't break things down like they used to, or maybe absorb things. And so, particularly with the diet that she's on, we're really paying attention to the digestibility of the diet. So, how hard does her body have to work to get those nutrients, or can she spend more time being herself, right? So I mean, the coat health, it takes a lot of nutrients, and so it's really nicely balanced there to support her in her age. The digestibility of the diet, the added nutrients in here, so there is some bone and joint health in that diet as well. That again, with like the fish oil that's in there, again amplifying that coat. And the digestibility, amino acids play a cool role in coat color and bringing that out. And so it's
Mm.
really neat to see that happening. We've had black kittens, or they almost look brown in rescue, and then we start feeding them proper nutrition, and all of a sudden you come back and you're like, well, where are the brown kittens? And they're like, that's them. Like, but they look oil slicked, right? They're just this really nice shiny
Shiny.
black coat. Yes. And it's all about, nutrition in general, being able to fuel that. It's really cool to see it happen in front of your eyes.
Well, they
She's a
say you are
queen.
what you eat, and she looks just spectacular. So I am glad that there are people like you who understand this stuff really well and can translate it for someone like me, who obviously I care so much about the well-being of my cats and my kittens, but this is a complex area. So I really appreciate you sharing what you know, and helping all of us learn a little bit more. I just have one last question, and it's a would you rather question. It's a very, very
Awesome.
silly one. So don't think too hard on it. Just answer which one you think. So the question is, would you rather prepare for yourself a fully loaded, luxurious 4-course meal, but all of the food has to be in kibble form? So like dry little kibble bits of all of your favorite foods, but it's little bits. Or would you rather eat a luxury 4-course meal of whatever you want, anything, but it was made by a cat?
I'd probably go by the cat because I'll be honest with you, I am not a very good cook. I make a disaster in my kitchen. So if I have to prepare it, we're in trouble. So I might trust Dundee at this one. He seems to have impeccable taste.
I'm thinking like that food looks pretty good, but I'm like, if my cats were preparing me food, there would be a lot of cat hair in it. But also, like, let's be real, there's cat food in everything or cat hair in everything that I eat, because
Everything.
I have a lot of cats in my house. So, you're going to eat cat hair sometimes. How bad can it be?
Yeah. Nutrients.
Well, well, that's getting into a whole other thing, and we're not going to talk about the nutrition of eating cat hair, but probably not something that you should do. But thank you so very much for all of your wisdom that you shared with us. Where can people go to learn more about the work that you're doing and the Royal Canin diets? Where would you like people to go for more information?
Yeah, so when it comes to the nutritional information from Royal Canins, they can go right onto our royalcanin.com website, and it will guide you in selecting a diet for your pet, and does also cover some of the myths. If you would like some more information about pet food labels and, kind of unraveling that label like you did, I do recommend folks going onto the AFCO website because they really do have a nice simplified version of how to read a pet food label. And again, it's unsolicited. It's literally just what are the rules out there, and it's always nice to have that guide. And when it comes to choosing a pet food or Googling, right? Because Dr. Google can be a challenge or misleading. There is a great helpful tool on the Wasava website, so WSAVA.com. Or I believe it's a .com, but what that will do is that actually has advice for what owners should look for when they're looking for a website to give nutritional information. Again, it's not sponsored by a company. It's literally the best of the best in their opinion to help you choose the right spots, right? Because not everything on the internet is true. And so it will help with the myth busting and figuring out what's true for your cat.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, Bree. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for all of the help that you've given me with my kittens and my cats as well. I really appreciate you, and it was great chatting.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and I'll live vicariously through you swimming with ducks.
Thank you. Talk soon. Bye, Bree.
Talk soon. Bye.
Oh, she's awesome. She teaches me a lot, and she's been so very helpful with, a lot of the cases I've taken on. So I'm really grateful to her. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And again, thank you to Royal Canin for partnering with me. I want to remind you that you can hop on royalcanin.com/cat health to learn about the Take Your Cat to the Vet campaign. And right now, you can actually go on there and you can enter the Cat to Vet sweepstakes. They have all sorts of really cool prizes on there, including what Bree was talking about. The hematuria detection product is available on there. If you are entering, you are going to get this gift from Royal Canin. So go to royalcanin.com/cat health to learn more and to participate in the sweepstakes, and just to find out how you can be providing better care to your cats and making sure that you are giving them that veterinary access. speaking of veterinary access, my guest next week is my very own personal kitten vet. Her name is Dr. Rachel Wallach, and she's going to be talking with us all about veterinary care for neonatal and special needs kittens. I'm super excited for that. But that's all for this week. So stay curious, stay compassionate, and join me again next week on Kitten Lady and Friends. Bye, everyone.